Róisín Murphy is an Irish pop singer who has been killing it for years now. It seemed as though she's gone so many years without getting the true amount of recognition that she's really fully deserved. I mean, sure, you'll see her on critics' lists every now and then. Her 2015 album seemed to do quite well. I think it got a Mercury Prize nomination. Maybe it didn't, maybe it did, but it did get a bit of recognition. So, you know, there is a spotlight on her. She's a well-known name, but it does feel as though when you think of like the best pop albums of the 2000s, she's not really mentioned, even though I think she has two of them. Even albums in general, honestly, it seems as though those first two albums that she put out solo were fantastic and kind of underappreciated. And this is without even looking at what she did with Moloko, the group that she was a part of before going solo. So looking at that stuff as well, the tracks that she put together in that band were fantastic. Familiar Feeling, wow. And it seems as though this new album here, Róisín Machine, is definitely getting the most recognition I think I expected to see from her in quite some time, and is actually getting a lot of people onto her music, which I am really happy about, because I remember even saying in my Jessie Ware review, where I made some slight comparisons to Róisín Murphy, you know, it seems as though if, you know, Jessie Ware's getting a huge amount of recognition, then it seems like she deserves her due as well. Róisín Murphy is going too long without getting her due diligence. It's great to see from someone who's been repping her music for so long now that she's actually getting that recognition, and it's cool. It's cool to see so far into her career that the critics are really piling on this album, and even general fans too. And for me personally, it is a good album. I do think it is a good album. I do enjoy it. I don't quite love it the same way some people out there seem to be, but I don't really mind, because my one opinion shouldn't really change how people feel on this album. And to be honest, to see her get this huge amount of acclaim is not really going to get me annoyed in any particular way. This album to me feels like Róisín's just kind of ditched a lot of what you'd expect from a pop album. She's kind of just going all out with huge, lengthy, mammoth tracks. Lyrically, I get the impression from this album that a lot of the time she just feels as though she doesn't really care what people think. She's just going to say what she's going to say, and she's sort of lost some inhibitions, and she's just happy to speak how she feels. She wants to tell her story, as she says on the opening track. And that's what I think I like about this album really the most, because it just seems like there's this apathy to what people think. You know, she doesn't really care. She's kind of like neglecting that side of things, and she's just doing what she wants. You know, she wants to do a pop song that lasts way longer than it probably ought to be. She's going to do it anyway, because fuck it. The refrain, the hook on Simulation is pretty repetitive, I must admit, but it is pretty nice as well. It's got a great groove to it, and it never really gets boring, even though you could probably cut the length down a little bit and it wouldn't really harm the song. Something More is a very luxurious track. A lot of the lyrics are pointing to, like, you know, having materials, things that, you know, she owns. She might have $1 billion in the bank. She might have even boys in the bed. She might do. But the thing is that all of those things don't amount to a fulfillment, because she wants something more. I don't want just some of the cake. I want all the cake. I don't need to eat all the cake, but you know what? I will, because I can. And that's what this track is essentially being, basically just saying that, you know, nothing is ever enough. She wants more. Yeah, it's a bit like materialistic. It's a bit, I guess, self-centered, vain, all those kinds of words, but I think she kind of sells it. You could even read it in a way that's attempting to mock those kinds of attitudes of, like, you know, people just wanting everything because they have the money to do that and they just buy everything they possibly can, that kind of thing. Or it is in fact from her own attitude. You could read it both ways, I think. The great incorporation of piano later in the track, I feel like that is a great match when you have like a kind of like disco flavored beat and you just incorporate a really nice piano chord in the track too, and then it just kind of matches up. There's always something really, there's always something really good about that. The production on this album is mostly really on point. I mean, you can tell that the grooves are always in the right places. There's always a pace to the tracks that make you kind of suddenly bob your head, even if it's quite subtle at points. New disco dance pop flair to so many of these tracks is really on point. Incapable probably being one of the best examples of that, which was one of the main singles as well. I like the lyrical theme of this track, and of course her singing is fantastic throughout too, where she's talking about how like she's incapable of maintaining love, incapable, sorry, of falling in love. She just seems to have this awful experience anytime she tries to get into a relationship. I feel like there's a relatability to that though, because a lot of people just tend to struggle in that sense, and this track just kind of showing, you know, from her perspective that it's still an issue even though she might be, you know, far into her life now. You have Murphy's Law as well, which is equally as catchy as Incapable. Another great track here. They're definitely the highlights, I think, on the album. Murphy's Law, Something More, and then Incapable. I think by the time you hit the final 3 tracks, the album massively loses steam. Like, as enjoyable as it was before this, it wasn't amazing to listen to, if you know what I mean. Like, I was liking it quite a bit, but I wasn't blown away. So I was kind of hoping to get something a bit more exciting towards the end to maybe just reignite a spark in me, but it just ends up giving the weakest tracks. Game Changer, you got Narcissus, which just has really odd lyrics and quite an odd hook as well. It's trying to be very weird and trippy, but I just don't think it works very well. Then you got Jealousy too, which has just the most basic lyrics on the entire album, just very standard lyrics about jealousy. Expected a bit more insight or a bit more of an interesting theme here, especially from Róisín Murphy, man. Just seems to me like it hits a bit of a brick wall. And the thing with this album too is that with every track being as long as it is, you're kind of just having to trudge through a lot of them, you know. You're kind of slogging through a few of these tracks. They could easily be shorter, so by the time you do end up getting to the final few, you are kind of ready for it to be done anyway. Not something I really want to say about her as an artist, because I think she is just truly fantastic, but some of these tracks do go on for so long that they do test a lot of patience, which is a huge shame. I think you could probably cut down the length, really. But I think overall the grooves, the rhythms, the disco flavor on every track, the throwback to like the 80s, the 90s even, is really tasteful throughout. I think, you know, she's a really talented artist. She sells a lot of these tracks with her lyrics and her vocals as well. She's a great performer and still killing it late on in her career, so I can't really critique it so harshly because I think overall it's pretty good. I'm gonna go 6 out of 10. Definitely worth your time, an admirable effort. Hopefully you listen to it and check it out based on my recommendation. If you have already heard it though, let me know your thoughts in the comments. Thank you for watching my review. Do check out her earlier stuff too. Definitely the first 2 albums, definitely fantastic releases that you should be listening to. Ruby Blue, Overpowered. Thank you for watching this video. Hope you have a good day. Subscribe if you haven't already, and bye.